Hi students, today we'll be talking about the triangle sum theorem. Let's go ahead and start with a warm-up. Find the remaining angles and justify your answers. You can say if they're vertical, corresponding, and so forth. We're given 135 degrees here. Let's just fill in anything that's vertical to it or corresponding with the 135 since we know that those will be congruent. So looking in this part here, angle 2 would have to be 135 degrees. Those are vertical angles, so we can list that out over here. So angle 2 equals 135, and those are vertical angles. Let's keep looking here. So angle 1 then would be supplementary with angle 2. And we know that supplementary angles are equal to 180 degrees. So as we do that, this would be angle 1 needs to be 180 minus 135. That would be 45 degrees. So angle 1 has to be 45 degrees, which makes angle 4 also 45 degrees. We can list these out here. So next we did angle 1 is equal to 45, and the reason there is because they are supplementary with angle 2 to add up to 180, and then we looked at angle 4, and that equals 45 because angle 1 and 4 are vertical angles. Okay, moving down into this section here. If we look at all the corresponding angles, so angle 1 is corresponding with angle 5, so this needs to be 45 degrees. Angle 5 and 8 are vertical, so this also is congruent, 45 degrees. In the same way, 135 degrees up here is corresponding with angle 7, so this must be 135 degrees. And 135 is vertical with angle 6, so this is also 135 degrees. And all of this to say that these two lines are parallel from the beginning. Let's go ahead and start with a couple properties of triangles. So make sure you draw these in your notebook and label them as we do. This triangle here is called equiangular because as it's marked, all three angles are equal. In this triangle here, this is acute because all angles are less than 90 degrees. Here we're given one right angle, so this is called a right triangle. And lastly, this triangle is called obtuse because there's one obtuse angle. Obtuse, we should make sure we specify this, means that one angle is greater than 90 degrees. And in this case, acute one angle, all angles are less than 90 degrees. This is how we classify triangles by their angles. We can also classify triangles by their sides. In this one, you can see that all three sides are congruent. This is called equilateral, and they're marked with those slashes on each side. In this case, there's only two slashes. This is called isosceles, where at least two sides are congruent. And lastly, none of the sides are marked to be congruent, so this triangle is called scalene. Moving on, let's learn something about triangles. This is called the triangle angle sum theorem. So if you had to guess, what do you think would be the three angles in a triangle added up? You might think it's 360, 180, 45 degrees. Let me show you with a quick illustration. So here's our triangle, and I want to show you something about these three angles right here. And we can label these 1, 2, and 3. So these angles are still here. This is angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3 here. I'm going to separate the angles and twist them around just so that we can see how these line up with each other. So here's this part. So this was angle 1 here, and this is angle 3 here. Let me take this top angle and spin it around and move it in here, and you can see that it fits perfectly. And this is angle 2 from the triangle up here. What do you notice about angles 1, 2, and 3 now that we twisted them around and lined up? It should be pretty obvious that 1, 2, and 3 form a straight line, and so in this case they are supplementary. Meaning that together they add to 180 degrees. Now that we know that the angles of a triangle equal 180 degrees, we can solve a couple problems. Here's here's problem 1 and 2. Pretty basic problems. We'll go ahead and solve them. So we know from before that angle x, 30 degrees and 70 degrees has to equal 180. So x plus 30 plus 70 has to add up to 180 degrees. We'll solve this. So this is x plus 100 equals 180. Subtract 100 on both sides. We get x equals 80. So that would mean that this angle here must be 80 degrees, so that all three together add up to 180. Looking here, we're trying to find this exterior angle. Just as before, we know that 20 plus 60 plus this angle has to add up to 180 degrees. So doing some quick math in our head, 60 plus 20 is 80 degrees, and we need to get to 180, so let's do 180 minus 80 and we get 100. This spot right here must be 100 degrees, because 100 plus 20 degrees plus 60 degrees is 180. Now look at x and 100. These are supplementary. So that means that x plus 100 has to be 180 degrees. Subtracting 100 on each side of our equation, we get x equals 80. And I want you to pay attention to something about this exterior angle. We ended up getting that x is 80 degrees out here, and that relates to these two remote interior angles here. We'll do 2 more examples, make it a little more difficult, and try. Here's example 3. Find the value of the given variables. So in this case, here's our exterior angle, angle y, and we need to find its value. So I know that 30 plus 39 plus this angle here has to be 180. So as before, 30 plus 39, that's 69 degrees. So 180 minus 69, I end up with 111 degrees here. Just as before, I can see that here's a straight line, or a straight angle, so 111 plus y must be 180. So 111 plus y has to equal 180 degrees. Subtracting 111 on both sides, we get y equals 69 degrees. And as before, we can see how this exterior angle, we ended up getting 69 degrees, actually equals the sum of these two remote interior angles. This is a little bit of a shortcut if we can see how that works. And let's go ahead and do this last problem here. So we need to find x, y, and z. And we can see that there's a small triangle here on the left, one on the right, and then the very big triangle. In this case, let's just focus on this small one on the left side for now. So we have 30 and 80, so that's 110. And we know that this blue triangle has to equal up to 180. So subtracting, I get that x must be 70 degrees. Walking our way around, we can see that 70 and angle y are supplementary. So looking at these two, 70 plus this has to be 110 degrees would equal 180. And lastly, we have a couple different options in order to find the angle Z. We can use this triangle here on the right side, now that we know that this is 40, 110, and a missing angle, or we can look at the large triangle and do the same thing, because we have 80, we have 70, and then we have this angle here. I'm just going to use this black triangle here, so I have 110 plus 40 plus Z has to equal 180. So this is 150 plus Z equals 180. Subtracting 150 on both sides, I get Z to be 30 degrees. And always using the fact that a triangle is equal to 180 degrees. You guys go ahead and try these two examples, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.